All right, welcome everybody. If you can hear me, raise your hand. Some people are raising their hands, so I'm assuming we're all good. It's okay, Oscar, I've got your question. All right, so question next week, I think I'm going to go through. So one of the questions that I got is, what do I think of glide forms? And if I'm representing a seller, for example, I have a glide account. Now everybody has a glide account because you're a member of the California Association of Realtors, but I'm going to go through how that works. It's more of something that I would use glide if I were representing a seller to get the seller to fill out the forms. I'll give you a for instance, right? The transfer disclosure statement and the seller property questionnaire. Now, if you try to fill out those forms for the client in Zipforms and Lone Wolf, it's not going to work because they being the people who designed the forms and the law, they want the seller to fill out the transfer disclosure statement and the seller property questionnaire themselves. So they have to mark the boxes, right? And then send it back to you, and then you can send it to them for signatures. What Glide does, if you're a seller, is it sends you a link and you log in, and it goes through the disclosure advisory, it goes through all the different things one at a time, and people can fill it out, and then you get back a completed transfer disclosure statement and an SPQ. So maybe next week I'll talk about Glide. Some of you have access to Disclosures.io. What is the difference? Do they do the same thing? When would you use them? Today, however, I wanted to talk about disclosures from the buyer's agent point of view. All right, next week, Glide, as I said, seller's agent thing, seller's agent choice. So we're going to talk about it from the buyer's agent point of view. Now, in your material, I've given you a handout for those of you that were looking for a handout. This is from the California Association of Realtors, and it's for 1 to 4 units, statutorily or contractually required disclosures. This is not a bad list. I'm not going to go through every one today, but if you wanted to know where's a nice checklist for all the disclosures, there you go. Now, if you're with a particular company, they may have their own list. They may have some of their own disclosure, some of their own documents, an affiliated business relationship. They may have their own things. So you're going to have to figure that out for yourself, for your office. All right, now if you're with EXP as an example, and you're working on my team, we have that list. If you're someplace else, you're going to need to get your own list. That's all I got to say. So what I wanted to do is go through what the disclosures might look like. And I'm going to use an example. I wrote an offer on this property yesterday. Still don't know yet, but I wanted to, it was a reasonable disclosure package. And so what I wanted to do is sort of go through what the disclosure package would contain, particularly focused on what you would need to do if you're an agent representing the buyer, right? So this is a property in Mountain View, 284 North Rainsdorf. Now you'll notice here, I can do a docusign right from this, but I typically would want to download them. Now, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, should I sign up for DocuSign? Should I buy a electronic signing program? Well, if you have a membership in the California Association of Realtors, you already have access to digital ink, right? 2 versions of digital ink, which can sign documents. If you're at EXP or many of the Keller Williams offices, they use a program called SkySlope. And SkySlope has something built into it called DigiSign, right? So personally, I don't feel the need to sign up for DocuSign when I already have 2 electronic signing programs already. Now, the difference between digital ink and DocuSign or DigiSign or one of those other programs typically has to do with large files. If, for example, when I want to download all of these disclosures, if I click on combined PDFs, it's going to merge all of them into one nice big handy file. What you're going to find, however, is that if you try to send that all at once through digital ink, that the system it doesn't work very good, right? In other words, it doesn't work when you've got a huge number of files. Plus, you don't want them all to be separate files because that may be too many different things for them to sign, right? That's up to you. So what I typically would do is download them as separate PDFs, right? And I'm going to put them on the desktop. And then what I'm going to do for fun is I'm just going to extract them now, all right? So now I have all the different files. Now, what I'm probably going to do, yeah, that's fine. All right, you can put it there. I don't care. That's fine. All right, they all should be there. They are, and it's working on it. All right, let it work on it. All right, so now I've downloaded all the files. I'm going to show you how to do things with those files so that we could clump them together, how to get them all signed, what should you say about that. So let's just take a peek at this system. All right, here's instructions, preferred escrow. That's one of the advantages. And by the way, I'll go through both Glide and Disclosures IO. They allow you to say stuff like this, right? They want the offers submitted through this program. There's a little, and then here's a list of documents. And then there's a place for the buyer and the agent, that would be you, to sign. So this is a document. It's more than just a cover sheet. It's a list of the documents that you're getting, and they're going to want you to sign that, right? So that's going to be part of our signing block. If we look at the next one, the Metro, man, it's been a while since I've seen a MetroScan report, but anyhow, this is a property profile talking about the property. And notice they've taken this little image, which I'll show you how to do too, right? If you're a listing agent, how you could take a little image like that and put it on the different documents. So they're going to be asking for the buyer to sign this, and this is just information from the tax assessor. All right, what else? So here's a preliminary title report. I'm going to later have a speaker talk about how to read a prelim, but notice they also have that little pink thing there for you to sign, showing that your clients have received it. That's not for you to sign as the agent, but for your client. So we're gonna have to put signatures there. All right. So this is the CC&Rs. Again, there's the little, sign here. This looks like old CC&Rs, and you might want to take a peek at it. The older ones, we'll talk about, we'll talk about that in another class in greater detail, but generally people want to know, what can they do? Can they expand? Can they build? What about pets? What about renting it out? What about conducting a business, right? Those are the typical kinds of questions, and you should look through this, and your client should look through this. And again, there's a little pink thing for people to sign. The next one is sideways. This is a plot map, a track map. And again, there's a place for them to sign showing that you've got a copy of it. Now, I've had clients, by the way, take notice there's measurements here. It's going to take a little while to figure out which one it is. I'm not going to do that right now, but there is a legal description. It's sort of sideways. But anyhow, this is the assessor's map, right? That's the assessor's map. And here, let me zip down here. So here's a color assessor's map. This looks like it was taken from, it was from a title company, showing the location. This can all be done through Realist or other programs you have. Again, there's a place for the buyer to sign. Here we go to the NHD report. Now, I'm going to have later another speaker, that's because I need help doing these things, who's going to go through how to read an NHD report, right? But I'm not going to do that. Again, there's a place for people to sign. But if you go into it, you're going to see, notice here it says signature of sellers. It's not there yet, and the seller's agent, right? That may be in something else later, which I'll show you, but that also should be. So here's a copy of the whole NHD report in its beauty, right? There it is. Next is the termite report. And there's, again, that little pink thing for your clients to sign. What was the signature block and HTE PDF edited by DocuSign or Disclosure IO? Neither of them. I think what you're at, I'm not entirely sure what you're asking. If you're talking about the little pink thing that appears, that was probably done with some other program. And I can show you how to do that. But I'm not, but you know, not right now. Was that the answer? Yeah, the ping thing. I'll show you how to do that. That will be one of the special things you're going to learn today is how do you add something like that image to a PDF? How do you do that? It's magic, right? Absolutely magic. So here's the termite report, and they're, you know, they have to say that they, you know, they saw it. Now, when I'm looking at it, and I'm going to have an inspector come and talk to us at some point, but what I always do when I see the termite report is I scroll to the bottom, because this is the page I'm interested in. Just to start with, there's $2,585 of Section 1 work. Right now, what Section 1 work means is that there are wood-destroying pests or organisms. That means termites, either subterranean or dry wood that fly around, or it means fungus, or it means rot, not mold. Mold is not a wood-destroying pest or organism. So I can tell from that number that there's probably tinting involved. The place probably has termites. Once I look at that, then I might go back, and of course they should read it too, but I might go back looking for, here we go, Section 1 work, termites, there we, you know, more termites. But I can tell from just the expense that we're talking about tinting. Right, so there's the termite report. The next one is the in property inspection. Just a note about this. Let's say you have a buyer who's interested in buying a fixer-upper. This is not a fixer-upper. But let's say you have a buyer who's interested in buying a fixer-upper. You need that buyer, you and or your buyer needs to know a contractor, because if it's a fixer-upper, the thing about the property inspection is it doesn't tell you how much fixing anything costs, right? It just says, hey, this could be an issue, that could be an issue. Hey, you ought to have somebody else look at this, but they don't tell you what it costs, right? That's why you need a contractor. Now, many of these companies, including this one, to make it easier for you, puts in red the things that jump out of them as something you ought to look at, right? And so, you know, your client apparently, you know, would look at that. Again, I'm not doing how to read a property inspection. Notice it says here, Rengsdorf property disclosure.pdf. This is what we would call the stack of documents. Notice it says down there, there are 79 pages in this group. Can you see why we might need to break this up into pieces to get it signed? So as we're going through this, there's agency disclosure, nothing to see here. This is the representative capacity because it's a trust, the living trust. So they've signed saying that they are in fact the people, you know, that represent the trust. Here's a trust advisory. Question for you guys, okay? Is this property an exempt trust? So you'll notice that that seller must comply with the following. So what this is saying is that here, what it's saying is that some trusts are exempt from the transfer disclosure law and from the seller property questionnaire. some trusts are exempt. Is this an exempt trust? And the answer is no, it is not. And why isn't it an exempt trust? And the answer is because it said here that this is a living trust. You see that? A living trust. And living trusts are not exempt trusts. Right? So an exempt trust would be a vested trust where somebody has died. But this is a general advisory. And it says just because it's a trust doesn't mean you don't have to do everything. But there it is. It's the trust advisory. Again, you might want to read that at some point. Now notice down here, there's a place for the buyer to sign. You see that? So that's one of the things that you would need to do is go through. This is why people have transaction coordinators. It's a transaction coordinator because somebody has to drop into the signature blocks. So here's the TDS. Now what I do with the TDS is we're really looking for boxes that have been checked that require some sort of an explanation. So some of these are just questions. How old is the roof? 3 years old. It's a foam roof. That's nice. They've installed a Ring doorbell, water conserving landscaping, and they've noted that the window does not have a screen. One window sounds awful. Here they've mentioned insulation, that they're not sure if the walls are insulated or not. You know, I'm not either. And so then here's the list of TDS questions. You almost always see this box checked for yes because of fences. Almost all properties have common fences, and you're looking for yeses other than that one. And down here it says shared fences, but everything else is a no. Notice there's a place for the buyers to initial, right? And then here is the AVID, and notice she's checked, see attached agent visual inspection disclosure form. So they've done their own AVID. And what you would be doing if you're representing the buyer is you would be checking this box. Again, you're going to need a program to let you check boxes on a PDF. Plus, you're supposed to be printing in the name of the broker, that would be your company, and your signature would go here. And again, that would require you being able to type on it and then they sign it again. So here's a copy of her AVID. We had taken a look at another AVID before. This one is kind of right on. Notice it doesn't say minor cracks or normal cracks. It just says cracks. It just says marks, right? There's a lot of nothing noted, loose grout at the kitchen sink, scratch, mark on door casings. Notice the lack of adjectives. Again, there's places for the buyers to initial. And then other stuff could be written in, but again, these are, notice just crack, doesn't say minor, doesn't say major, doesn't say normal, just, you know, straightforward. And then it's filled out. Notice there's a place for the buyer to sign. Also notice down here, you're supposed to be typing in the name of your company and you're supposed to be signing it too. Then here's the text overflow addendum, which is from something else above, and about the AVID. And then this whole paragraph here, I guess I can understand why they put it in, but basically the agent is saying I could hear traffic noise, right? Which would be maybe an AVID thing. But the rest of this, all of this rest of the stuff is actually repeated in other forms that are part of the disclosure package. It doesn't hurt, I guess, to have suspenders and a belt. You know, I know it doesn't, you know, what's the harm? But all of this has been said elsewhere. But I'm not opposed to, you know, saying it again. Place for the buyer to sign. Here's the seller property questionnaire. Again, we're looking for yeses, buyer initials, more yeses. And notice it says another text overflow addendum. So we'll have to see what those things are. There's a couple of more yeses. There have been dogs in the property for the last 5 years. Right? So they're pets. There's looking for more yeses. So this part here says not applicable because it's not a common interest development, right? That's all they did. Again, not looking for, so here's the text overflow addendum, repairs and alterations. Please see attachment, drip irrigation. This is just about things that they've done. Here's a list of all of the things that they've done, right? Because the SBQ asks, have you done things to the property? Have you made improvements? And here's the list, right? The water heater smoke detector statement of compliance. Again, there's a place for your buyers to sign. There's also the smoke detector, water conserving plumbing fixtures. This is the receipt for the booklet. Actually, the receipt part is down here. They've signed it, so buyer's signature. Notice it wants the printed name of the buyer. All right, I'm going to show you how to do this. The earthquake disclosure book. All right. Can anybody tell me for a cookie, I would throw you one if I could do that. Is this disclosure form required in all sales of residential property 1 to 4 units? That's a yes or no. Let me just see how you, let's see a hand raise on this. Not for all, some people. So my question is, did I lose that? Yes, we get some yeses. I say, is it required? And did I lose all that stuff that I was looking at? Let me just go down here, property disclosures. So is that earthquake form that I was referring to, which comes out of the booklet, required on all sales of single family homes? And the answer is no, it is not required. It is not required. It is not required. Not. Now for a cookie, can anybody tell me what year is the cutoff year where properties built before that year have to fill out this form, but property built after that year does not have to fill out the form? That would be maybe a 2 cookie answer. If anybody could tell me that. I don't see people texting in. Some people are Googling it right now. And I see 1978. That's for the lead-based paint. 1974. I don't think that's a year that we need. I don't know. 1978 again. That's for lead-based paint. The answer is no. It's 1965. 1965. So in 1965, the building codes have been changed. Anything built before, this is a single family wood frame residence built before 1965 is required by law to fill out that form. Or if it is a brick building, a masonry structured building, it's before 1971, right? But anyhow, so what the thing about this is, and this property, by the way, we went through the property profile was built, I think, in the 1950s, which is why they need to do this form. Anything built before 1965 is required to have this form. Now, as a listing agent, sometimes I'll go ahead and fill out the form, even if the property was built after 1960. Sometimes I'll do that. But sometimes I don't, right? And what will oftentimes happen is that the agent representing the buyer on their transaction coordinator's checklist, they have this form. But let's say the property was built in 1975, right? Well, what they find after the transaction coordinator is going through it, that this form is not in the disclosure package. Why not? Because we don't have to do it if it was built after 1960. We don't have to. So then the transaction coordinator is telling the buyer's agent, you need to get them to give us a copy of this form. It's on my checklist. Now you're going to find that I'm not going to be cooperative. I will not be cooperative. And the reason I'm not cooperative is if I have the client fill out this form during escrow and give it to the buyer, it triggers a right of rescission to the buyer. They can back out of the transaction. So I'll take the view that if it ain't in the contract and it isn't in the civil code, you're not getting it, right? You're not going to get it, right? If the contract doesn't require it or the civil code doesn't require it, I ain't doing it, and I'm certainly not doing it after we're in escrow. Now, if you represent the seller, you should know that agents are going to be coming to you and saying, this is on the transaction coordinator checklist. My broker says I'm not going to get paid unless I have everything that's on the checklist, and I need you to get a copy of the form. And we're not filling out new disclosure forms a week or two before escrow closes. Ain't going to do it. Right, so that's just something that you might want to know, and you could read the book about what are these questions, what are these things talk about. By the way, the most common question I get from this form is, what is a cripple wall? Right, I've been asked that for a long time. What is a cripple wall? Now, one of the things you could do if you're really curious, you'll notice it talks about cripple walls, right? You notice that. And it's not a wall to keep. Did I do that again? Could I have possibly done that again? It is not a wall that, I'm not going to go there. So what it is if you've seen pictures of after an earthquake and there's properties that have fallen over on the side, that's because they had a cripple wall. So essentially the property's up on stilts to some extent. I have to be much more careful about this. Up on stilts, right? All right, up on stilts, and then when it, there's an earthquake, it'll fall over. Usually, properties that are like this that have cripple walls have oftentimes a lattice kind of wood thing that goes around it, right? Anyhow, but you should, by the way, read through these things, and if there's things you don't know, you might want to look them up, right? Because I've had agents call me because the client was saying, what's a cripple wall? And they're like, I have no idea. A wall to keep cripples out of that. I don't know, right? I have no idea. Well, I'm just telling you. And so this is simply asking questions. Now, some of them, it doesn't apply. Some of them, they said they don't know. Most people don't know, right? They don't know. And it asks questions like, have you had the property retrofitted? Right, so here's other things, lead-based paint. It was built before 1978. So there's the lead-based paint. Again, there's a place for the buyer and the agent. And notice it keeps asking for the name of the broker, right? Now, at some point, we're gonna have to type that in, right? Here's FERPTA, the FERPTA form. Again, there's a place for the buyers to sign. I'm not going to get into FERPTA right now, but maybe for another class, there's a couple of FERPTA forms, one for each. Here's the NHD that requires the signature of the buyers, right? So they put together this great big package, all the different forms that they want you to sign. Here's the statewide buyer and seller advisory. Now, this already answers questions about neighborhood noise, and you should verify square footage, and you should do all that, right? So basically, this is a list of things that we're telling the buyer, we're not responsible, we don't know, right? If you're worried about easements and things like that, you should hire an expert. Environmental hazards, the NHD report is going to talk about that. Formaldehyde, that's oftentimes found in furniture and carpets and things like that. Geological hazards, this is a general inspection thing. A mold advisory, you'll find that that language is also usually repeated in NHD report. This is why they ask him about pets and animals, because you can guess why they would ask about that. Septic systems, you have to tell people if you have one. That was in the transfer disclosure statement. Soil and geological conditions, square footage, lot size, boundaries, and surveys. This paragraph essentially says nobody is sure exactly how big the house is or the lot is. We're not sure. And you'll find, if you look in different public sources, the title company property profile, looking at what the MLS their connection to the tax assessor, the preliminary title report, sometimes you'll find they have different numbers. And nobody really knows why. Now, we know if the seller says, well, I believe it's 2,500 square feet, put that in the MLS, we know where that came from. But why would the title company number and what realist or the tax assessor, why would they be different? We don't really know. But sometimes they are. And so this is saying that we're not 100% sure, right? We have a client who has a condominium and it's 1367 square feet, and he's telling us, no, the neighbor, it's exactly the same, is 14 something. You know, I look at the tax records, they've always said that one was bigger than the other. I would ask the client, have you taped it? I mean, do you know, right? Have you taped it? By the way, when we're measuring square footage of a building, this will be a hand-raising question. We're measuring the square footage of a building. How many would say, raise your hand, that we use the outside of the building dimensions as opposed to the inside dimensions? How many say, we're measuring the square foot of the building, is it the outside? Outside? I'm not seeing a lot of hands going up. Maybe one or two, I don't know. How about this? I'm putting the hands down, inside. It's the inside dimensions. And I'm seeing some of the same people putting their hands up for this one. The answer is it's the outside, not the inside. It's the outside, not the inside. That makes it a little bit, what about the garage? Well, they have to figure out which part, because the garage is not included. So it's the outside, and two different appraisers measuring the property can come up with different estimates as to how big it is. We don't really know. And if you want to know, hire somebody to find out. Water intrusion, well and septic, there's a thing about pests, wood destroying pests. ADUs, there's information about ADUs, building permits. Is it possible that there were additions made without the benefit of permits? The answer is yes. How would we know that? Because there may be a discrepancy in what the MLS says the square footage is versus what the tax assessor says it is. And that's oftentimes because they did something without permits. Can you check whether or not permits have been issued? The answer is yes. Now, if you want to know how would I know that? Send me an email, and in the email, write an email. You don't have to actually send it, write an email and ask me the question, how would I check building permits by address in San Jose, Cupertino, whatever, right? Write that sentence out, and before you email me, copy it and go to Google and paste it in. And what you're going to find is that most cities and counties have a way for you to go to their website, put in an address, and see permits that have been issued. Now, what we would rather do is send that link to the client so they can do that research. Because if there's something wrong and we were in between, I'm just saying it could be an issue, but you should know that. And I know where to find a lot of them because this comes up often. Just because the buyer wants to make changes in the future doesn't mean they're going to be allowed to. There's an insurance disclaimer. There's a whole bunch of things. Now, at some point, you ought to actually read this, just so when people ask you questions, you know that it's there and where it is. There's eviction control and retrofits and short-term rental restrictions. That means you may not be able to do Airbnb. Water shortages, some brokers actually have a drought advisory. It's a separate advisory, mellow roofs, other neighborhood disclosures. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you can see this is where most of the boilerplate, we're not responsible, you should look for this on your own, would be found. Now, if I've listed the property and it's in Santa Clara or San Mateo County, I'm going to include a San Mateo, Santa Clara County disclosure that I get from PRDS, which is another form system. Okay? I'm going to do that. Not everybody does, but anyhow, they don't, these people don't, and many don't. but there is one that is extra. Now, Alameda County has their own disclosures, what are called local advisories. Contra Costa County has their own local advisories. San Francisco does as well. Can I explain mellow roost? So if you have a male chicken that is taking antidepressants, they would be a mellow roost. No, that's not right. So Mello and Roos are the names of two politicians from a long time ago. And what they did is they put their names on a law that creates what are called community facilities districts. And this is something that we can talk about when we go through the prelim. Now, what a community facility district is, it's a bond measure for a local area where anybody who buys a property that's subject to the Mellow Roost bond has to take over the bond payments, which sometimes go for eternity. It's not the thing that you could just pay off. So an example that I see quite often on prelims is like $30 a year for the library, right? And so every year, $30 goes to the library. I've seen where there was a Mellow Roost, there's a Mellow Roost that had $8,000 a year, which was ridiculously high. But it's included, by the way, the Mellow Roost disclosure is included in the tax area of the natural hazard disclosure statement. So the natural hazard disclosure statement is more than fire, floods, and earthquakes, right? It includes environmental hazards, and it should include that, and it will include a disclosure of any taxes or bonds. Now, I was also just asked a question about, I think the question was, would you please explain the reason to use PRDS local disclosures? All right, if you insist. So if we type in San Jose, Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, local disclosures in real estate. So Santa Clara County local disclosures. This, by the way, is something that you might be interested in knowing, because this is from the Santa Clara County Association of Realtors. And so here are government jurisdictions and apartment ordinances and the street tree disclosure. And by the way, a good NHD company will have that in their NHD, even those street trees, you know, Saratoga. So here's a list of those things. Now, if you look at PRDS forms, and I admit that not everybody may have this, but let me just show you. I want to make sure I still have it. I've actually talked to the powers that be at the Santa Clara County Association of Realtors, and I've asked them why we don't have one. And I'll show you what I mean what one would look like. Alameda County Real Estate Disclosure. City of Bay East, how about this? bayeast.org. City of Alameda, real estate related policies and regulations, City of Alameda. Here we go. Copy of resources, that's not what I wanted. No, not yet. How about this? East Bay disclosures and disclaimers. So here we go. This is different people have put them together. I don't have access to that association's stuff, but I'm just saying that Bay East has it, right? Bay East has it for Alameda County. They have a set of disclosures for Alameda County, and we don't have one. Let's see if it still works. So what I'm going to do is add a doc, and I'm going to add a form. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see PRDS library. Does everybody see that? There's also the San Francisco Association of Realtors. Now, I can't guarantee that you have that choice, but I'm special. And so what I have here is the San Mateo, Santa Clara counties disclosures. You see that? Which has apparently already been added. It's from PRDS. And the reason I have that, because it's generally better to give more than less. And so here is a bunch of things. It talks about trains and BART and a whole bunch of different things. And I usually throw this in. If I represent the seller, I will include this with the statewide buyer and seller advisory. Now, a lot of this is very much the same kind of stuff. However, there are some things that are specific to San Mateo and Santa Clara County. Most of this looks like the same kind of stuff, but at the beginning, there was a list of resources where you could go to, and this sort of does the statewide buyer and seller advisory, but notice it's talking about regional issues. You see, the statewide buyer and seller advisory doesn't do that. Litigation against city governments, coastal conditions, San Francisco Bay, Bayfill, agricultural areas, golf courses, local option disclosures. It tells you which cities have them. San Mateo issues, there's a list of them there. Santa Clara County issues, there's some of them there. Here are some links. I throw that into the mix anyhow, right? Just because. I don't know. I think it's a good idea. All right. All right. So, by the way, here you go. Look at that. These guys were on it. They do have it. Now, I would have checked a box here, but they've thrown that one in as well. Right? They've included it. When you sell the house, could be in a Melrose, could be included in money back if they pay the entire balance and they purchase the home. A house selling in Marina. So I do not believe most Melrose go on forever. If there's a particular amount, you might be able to pay it off, but there's oftentimes a penalty for doing so because some investor who's advanced the money for the bond is expecting to get interest over that time period. Most Melroses are not to be paid off when the property sells. All right, so they do have the San Mateo, Santa Clara County disclaimer, right? And I showed you how to get that. Then what's this? Possible representation, more than one buyer or seller. You end up filling that out several times. They're going to want you to fill out that one. Market conditions advisory. Here's the, all these boilerplate things. Now, these people know what they're doing. In addition to, they want to know, is your client, the buyer, waiving inspections? Right, now they've given you inspections. Do you want to do other inspections? Now, this particular property, what they were expecting, because they had all the inspections, for somebody to make a non-contingent offer. But with the listing agent and the seller wants to see, and you as an agent representing the buyer would want to see, is for the buyer to say, no, I do not want to get another home inspection. I do not want to get another termite report. I do not want to get another roof report. I don't, and this is saying that we're telling you you ought to get another one. Now, in reality, what I would tell people is, rather than getting another property inspection, what we ought to do is look at the property inspection we've been given and go through it looking for items of further investigation or inspection. So they'll say things like the plumbing leaks and you ought to have a plumber look at the electrical as an issue, you ought to have an electrician look at it, that sort of thing. And you don't need an electrician and a plumber, you need a general contractor to look at the plumbing and the electrical and the other things, and then they could give a bid as to what it would cost to fix it. Just getting another general property inspection isn't going to answer what would it cost, and usually they find the same things the first one did. They may want to waive the investigations. I sold a property in Mountain View 2 years ago, and the buyer never even walked inside the structure, let alone get any inspections. You had to see it. It was a tear down, so people don't have to have inspections. But how to put in the pink box, I will talk about that. Gee. All right, so wildfire disaster advisory. Compass has an affiliated business arrangement one. We have something at EXP, so your company may have some as well. Right, I'm not going to go through all of those. All right, so there we go. Let's close this. Now, some of you, how would I put the little pink box, right? How would I do that? So first thing I'm going to do is find a pink box. Right? And the way I would typically find a pink box is I would go to Google Images. Read and received. Let's just say read and received. Nah, that was just read and received. All right, so here's something. Now, I'm not spending a lot of time doing this, but I could show you a way of doing it. So sometimes I simply look should have found a box first. Or I'll just make one. Why don't I just make one? If I had more time, I would keep looking. I believe my assistant has one, but I don't know where it is. Let me just see what it does look like. We'll make one. So how do you add a pink box? First of all, you go to Google Drive. And so what I typically would do is create a folder, right? And I already have a folder for this property, but I will create another one, 284 and our sample. And what I'm going to do, I don't know. I think I clicked on the wrong one. How about this? We're going to make a folder. There we go. Create. Right, so here's our folder. And then I'm going to go to this. Here are the different documents. And where's my folder? I didn't spell that very good, but you'll have to forgive me. And I just drag them all up here. Go away. All right. I don't know why that's doing that. I just don't know why. All right, so we'll just do a file upload. Someplace I know. All right. So I have the ability to unzip files in Google Drive, but to make this, not all about that, here are our documents, and I just want them in Google Drive. All right. And then we're going to wait a moment. Now, while we're waiting, I would recommend that there are two programs that I would recommend. One is a PDF reader called Foxit, F-O-X-I-T. It's a PDF reader. And yours is going to look a little bit different, but it doesn't require any registration. You don't have to pay them anything. It's free. It's called Foxit, 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 PDF, free PDF editor. Now, what Foxit will do is it'll allow you to type on PDFs. But remember, you guys want to see that pink thing appear, right? That's what you want to see. So the other thing you're going to want to do, this is a Google Drive extension that also works with Dropbox, is something called DocHub, D-O-C-H-U-B, right? Notice I use DocHub a lot. So DocHub, it's free. So let me just show you how we would do that. We're going to click on this, and this is what it looks like. I'm going to say open with DocHub, and I'm going to wait. Now, what DocHub will allow me to do, now that I've opened it, is let's say down here, we want to type in something, right? What I can do is I can click on that, and I could just start typing, right? So how about something like, received in red, and I can move it around a little bit, and then I could go over here and I could make it like a red text, right? I know you guys want to see the pink background. I know you do. Am I able to do that here? Choose a tool, make a box. I could make a box that looks like this. Maybe make it a little bit longer. All right, and so my assistant has already done this, but, and I don't really know how we fill it in, but does everybody see, if I wanted to, there's a received in red. If I had found an image, right? If I had found an image, let me just see if we've got one, because I actually have somebody else who does this, but let me just see. All right, so that doesn't look much better. So let me go back to DocHub. All right, where are we? That's not it, that's not it. Oh, I don't know where it is. So now that we've done this, I could copy this. And I think I can copy the whole thing. So right now, to make the received in red, what I need is an image, right? How do you get DocHub? You go into Google and you type in the word DocHub, and it'll show you how to get DocHub, right? It's a Google thing. It's a Google Drive extension, right? Now, let me just explain what DocHub will also do. When I click on this up here, notice it shows me all of these pages. Let's say I wanted to combine a bunch of different documents. Like one of them is 70 pages, but there's a bunch of them that I would want to combine. Combining documents is a little difficult. However, if I go here and I right-clicked on it, I can go to upload and insert file, and it gives me a bunch of different choices. One of them is Google Drive. And in Google Drive, here's that folder. Here's the other ones. Let's say I also wanted to include the preliminary title report. So I click on select and I click on append when it's done. And what it's now done is it's added the prelim to that PDF. So DocHub will allow me to take a bunch of different PDFs and combine them easily into one. It would allow me to reshuffle the pages and the order. It would allow me to delete a page, right? It allows you to do all that kind of stuff. And when we have a, I just believe, I'm gonna find something. All right, let me just do this. I'm gonna do this. Right? Although, what I'm looking for is one that says, it has the lines under it. Right? I should have, my assistant has one. I don't see one that I like, but let's say you wanted to use this one, right? It says received, so we're going to save the image. We're going to just leave it there. Is there a way to put it on multiple pages? Not really, quickly. So here's another received stamp, but the other one is fine. So what I would do is I would go up here and I would click on insert image, received. There it is. And then I would just now, I haven't found the right one, but you understand when I do, it would have 2 lines. Right now, we could just make it a copy of it. Right, we could do that. And then what we can do is if we've copied this, we could put this on every document we wanted. No, I don't have a way of doing it automatically. Does Foxit do the same thing? No. No, Foxit allows you to type, but doesn't allow you to copy and paste images on the PDF. DocHub does that. DocHub does everything, right? DocHub, by the way, let's say, and this I know is not necessarily related to today's session, but let's say, and you see that doesn't look terrible, just the words received and read, right? Just these words here, if I copied that, notice I could paste that on every page, right? I could easily paste that on every page, right? I don't know any other way to do it, but let me show you another reason that DocHub ought to be in your arsenal. Let's say, and this is a title report, so we're not going to normally mess with it, but let's say a lender or title company or somebody gave you a marketing piece, and but because of the requirements that they have their picture, their name, their phone number, all of their information on it. But you would like to put your information on it. First of all, in DocHub, I can go to the eraser tool and I can do that, and I've just eliminated their logo. Then I could go to the image tool, and if I go into my drive and I find my how about that one? It's a big one. It's kind of small. So what I would do is and by the way, you could put your picture, and then you could, by using the text tool, you could just type in your contact information. DocHub will allow you to edit a PDF, right? And not only are we talking about being able to type in it, but edit the PDF. Now remember, a lot of these documents, none of the ones I've uploaded, but let me just show you, do one more. So I right click, I go to upload and insert file, I go to Google Drive, and then I pick out something. Now, some of these are really long, and I don't know. So here's property NHD, property profile. I'll try the big one. This may take a little while. All right, wow, it's a big one. There is a limit. Yes, it does everything that Foxit does, but Foxit is easier to launch if all you need to do is type on something. So let me show you an example, right? So we're down here. Buyer. Now this one you can just drop in a signature block, but some of these, here we go. Buyer signature. I'm looking for something that wants names. Market condition advisory. All right. So you'll notice, and I'm not finding it right away, but you'll notice that some of the documents want the name of your broker, it wants the name of the buyer, it wants all that stuff. So what I sometimes will do is I'll just, in a notepad, like this notepad here, I'll put in my name, my DRE number, the office name, I'll need spelled out, the office DRE number, buyer name, right? And the reason I'm doing that is that as I'm going through the document and it says we want, here's the agent broker signing the offer. Now you understand what they want there is not a signature, they want the words. Here is where they drop in the signature block. So how do I do that? Well, I take office name, copy it. I go here, I paste it in. Right now, I picked red because I was messing around with it, but I would typically pick blue or dark blue or something like that. How about blue? All right, so, and then I would keep going, and sometimes I'll do it one at a time. So if I figure out, I'll find all the places where it wants the name, right, of the broker, right? Sometimes they want you to just put in the name, and I don't want to have to do that every time. See, here is the buyer. All right, notice they want the name and the, so I would say, okay, here we go. Buyer name, right? And I just go through doing this until everything is filled out. Now, is it true? How did I bring up Notepad? Notepad, if you have Windows, you type in Notepad. If you right click or pick pin to the taskbar, Notepad I have down in the taskbar, right? And I use Notepad because it strips out any formatting. And so before I start filling out the documents, I've laid out the data that I know they're going to ask over and over and over again. They're going to ask for the office name. In some places, they want the office DRE number. They're going to ask for my name and my DRE number, the buyer's names. And so I'm going to have those all handy so I don't have to, type them up myself, right? And let me just finish this and then we'll be done. The reason I'm doing this, because people may be thinking, well, can't I fill out stuff in digital ink and using one of those services? Yes, but it's a hassle. It doesn't work as well. It sometimes screws up the format. Yeah, you can put in check boxes, but you have to sign it to yourself. And then if you're the last one to sign, which is what you normally would be, then the other people don't see those things filled out and they'll say, well, I thought you didn't check this box, you didn't do anything. So before I upload the document for electronic signatures, the goal is to go through the documents with DocHub, check any boxes that need to be checked by just putting in an X, although I think I have a check mark as an option, but I just type in an X. I pasted in all of the typed things that they're asking for. When I'm done, I can either save it to Google Drive, save it to Dropbox. I could download it to my computer, and then I upload those, actually I'm my assistant, I upload all those documents into Digital Ink. Now you want to break these up into at least 2 groups because Digital Ink is going to have trouble electronically signing all of these at once. It'll start to hang up, right? So you want to do it in some pieces. You know, like that one big group might need to be broken into half. So I break it into some pieces, upload it into Zipforms, go to eSign, pick the, here, I'm sorry, go to eSign, right? Go to eSign, and when we click select documents to include, add external documents. You see? You see? So when I find, and then I would upload those documents that I've just manipulated in DocHub, right? How many pages in a group? Hard to say. About 30 or so is sort of maxing out. I'd have to ask Ra what her cutoff. We did it yesterday, and she breaks it up into different groups because I've tried doing them all at once, and the system just lags, and then it'll crash, all that stuff. By the way, let me just say, if you're at EXP or some of Keller Williams or any company that uses SkySlope digital ink seems better at the longer ones. It just seems a little bit better. But there's no reason that in DocHub you can easily break things into groups, right? You can arrange them into groups. You can go through, put in everything you need to put in, save it, upload it, and just use the electronic signing program for electronic signatures, which it's good at. But it's not that good at filling out forms that involve text. I'm just saying. All right, I hope that was enough. We're not done with disclosures, but these were sort of the general ones. We'll talk about how to use Glide and maybe disclosures IO. We're going to have somebody speak about how to read an NHD report, how to read a preliminary title report, and some of those other really fun things. By the way, if you're a real estate agent and you're serious about making money in real estate and you would like some real assistance with your transactions and with getting your business together and developing a plan and implementing the plan, reach out to me. Why don't we talk for a little bit? Because I might be able to help. Just saying, I might be able to help. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Stay safe out there. Bye.